2022 Urbandale City Council meeting. I will call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to take roll call, please.
Blake?
Here.
McBurney? Here. Obrecht?
Here.
And Kroll and Carberry Montgomery are absent.
Thank you, Nicole. If you please stand as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Urbandale is a national leader in character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. In conducting tonight's meeting, we expect that all participants will act in a respectful manner consistent with these principles. Item 2 is to approve the agenda. Ask for a motion in a second.
So moved.
Motion by Obrecht. Second by Blake. Discussion, please vote. No. Okay, thank you. That passes. Item 3, citizens forum. This is the opportunity to address the council on something that's not a part of tonight's regular agenda. Would anyone like to address the council? Okay, Ann. We know who you are again, but please give your name and address for the record again, if you could, please.
My name is Ann Hoffmaster. I live at 3417 Patricia Drive. I have questions about what is considered city property and what kind of signs and things can be put on public property. Recently, this last week, and even within the last couple of weeks, there have been a lot of signs up for a gun show at the, I believe, at the fairgrounds. They've been on property in Urbandale, which I think is public property right next to the Urbandale post office. I've been in other parts of Des Moines where they've been, where I've seen them there also, even though I know that's not Urbandale. There's other parts of the city and the suburbs that have those signs put up on public property. And also, a friend of mine told me that there were signs near schools, elementary schools and middle schools that had gun sale and gun show signs. I did see that the sign is taken down over by the Urbandale post office. But I am just wondering what kind of repercussions, maybe not repercussions is the right word, but what Urbandale can do to make sure that those kind of signs are not permitted, and if people are not going to abide by those regulations, then what Urbandale is going to do about penalizing people for doing that. And I also have questions because there's elections coming up, and a lot of political signs are on public property. So I don't know if anybody can address that at this point, or if somebody just wants to call me and let me know, what parts of the Urbandale rules or regulations apply.
No, that's a good question, Ann. Thank you, and we certainly can. I mean, just summarily, I'll just say, you know, it's one of those, and I did see some of these guns show signs too. I saw a lot of them that were, you know, put on chain link fences, and, you know, it's a matter of a lot of folks, the mentality is they beg for forgiveness and ask for permission. Obviously, those are not allowed, and people just blatantly put them in rights of way where they shouldn't be, or on public places, or even on other people's property where they shouldn't be. So that's the bottom line. As far as the repercussions, Bob, Steve, I think I'll let you guys maybe respond to that as far as what we can do. We certainly try, and again, there are a lot of violators from, as you mentioned, either commercial operators or political campaigns where they're placed where they shouldn't be. Our staff tries to do the best they can, but we can't be the sign police all the time. But we certainly, you know, if they see blatant violations of them, I know our folks go out and collect them and take them to the public works. But I'll let Steve, you wanted to respond any further?
Obviously, they're illegal. They're not allowed to do it. When there is a phone number or somebody that we can contact, we had a real problem with one of the pro painter signs companies here several years ago. We do try to contact them and tell them that they can't do it, but you're just chasing people around trying to inform them of that. To your point, Mayor, we grab them whenever we can, and probably the good news is council decided with this upcoming budget to hire a code enforcement officer. So that gives us another body, and one of the main functions of the code enforcement officer is going to be grabbing all these illegal signs. So,
Yep.
but we took this gun show thing, we took a couple of banners off of fences on city property. It's just, when we see them, or we appreciate when people call to let us know, because we don't always see all of them, we will go get them, because they are not allowed, obviously.
Yep. All right, thank you, Steve. And it's one thing that bugs the heck out of me too, Ann. So when I see them, sometimes I can go out and be a self-enforcement agent too. So they're, and if you see them, you're certainly welcome to take them and throw them away too. So they are not, you're well within your rights to do that too. Do it safely, I would recommend, but I've done it myself. So it's something that's galling from my respect, and it destroys the beauty of our city, I think, so. Signs have a time and a place, political signs have a time and a place, but certainly not in public rights of way, or not on places where they should not be, so.
We appreciate the calls to go get them, because we don't see all of them.
Yeah.
And I guess, quick question on that. So that new app, the C-Click Fix app, is that a way that somebody could take a picture of it and send it in to you? Okay, so that new, is it C-Click Fix? Is that what it is, or what is?
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. We have people just email us pictures all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
However it's convenient for them to do it, with
Okay.
whatever technology they have.
Would anyone else like to address the council on something not a part of tonight's agenda? Okay, we will move on then. Item 4, adoption of the minutes first for the April 5, 2022 meeting.
Move approval?
Motion by Obrecht,
Second.
second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. That passes. And from the April 12 lunch and learn,
Move approval?
motion by Blake, second by Obrecht. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 5 is the consent agenda. We have 11 items on that for approval.
Move to approve consent agenda?
Motion by Obrecht. Second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 6 was to establish a public hearing for the sanitary sewer and storm sewer easement vacation of Lot 2 Valeria subdivision at 3305 92nd Street. Would establish the public hearing of May 3, 2022. Okay, motion by Blake. Second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 7, planning and zoning items. We do have one. Item 7.1 is the Waterford Point Plat 3 preliminary plat at 142nd Street and Coyote Drive. And I'll turn it back over to our Community Development Director, Steve Franklin. Steve?
Just had a brief conversation with the engineer for the developer. We're still trying to work through one of the staff comments, and that comment could affect the design just a little bit. So their request is to push this back 2 more weeks and have you consider it then instead of looking at it now. And then if the design might change, we'll finish working through that last comment and then bring it back to you in 2 weeks.
All right. We don't need to take any action.
Which comment are we worrying about?
I was just gonna ask the same thing,
If you
Adam.
may, if you may say.
It's widening the pavement for a turn lane at one of the entrances, and they just need to look at that and see what kind of impact that's going to have. It's going to create some difficulties that we want to work through. Am I phrasing that correctly, essentially? Yeah.
All right. So we don't need to take a motion. I just defer for tonight and we'll move on. All right. Thank you, Steve. That moves us to item 8, regular agenda items versus item 8.1. And that's the 2022 Series A General Obligation Bonds bid tab. And I'll turn it over to our city manager, AJ Johnson. AJ?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you. Today, the city received bids for their annual letting for bonds, for sale of bonds for capital projects for the city. Travis Squires of Piper Sandler is our financial consultant, is here tonight to share that information with council and answer your questions that you may have concerning that bid letting. So Travis?
All right.
think you can, there we go. Isn't that? All right, thanks for taking some time to chat. Nikki said 3 minutes, so we'll go really fast. I was gonna say, according to the agenda, I've got like more than that, Nikki, but, so today was the day you're receiving bids. So I'll just kind of walk through the financing process. We'll go over the results and then just look how it impacts your profile. So public hearing process held back in February. That was all completed. Budgeted items with respect to your fiscal '23 budget. You've got bond payments set there. A little bit of overview on the bond rating process. It was pretty status quo. You guys have been the beneficiary of, if we look at like Moody's scorecard, they kind of score out all the cities and it kind of, what I'll say, spits out a rating. You know, there's not much qualitative approach. And that spits you out at a scorecard level of AA2. You guys then receive the benefit based on various factors. They actually pull your rating up to AA1. So you're just one notch below the highest AAA rating, on par with where like City of Ankeny is as well, and a lot of the other metro communities. So no red flags there with rating. You know, everything looks pretty good. Your debt burden obviously manageable. That continues to be their biggest comment is debt burden. And when they say debt burden, they're also pulling in pension obligations as part of the debt burden. So that kind of remains one of those things on like an annual carry cost, you know, really keeps you from really sliding forward. And that's something that's very hard for growing communities to really get to where you need. That's why you see Ankeny in a similar boat. Your tax base just isn't quite large enough in their mind for the amount of debt that you have to get to AAA. And obviously you're still flying above all the lower AA ratings. Bond offering documents have been out on the street, so to speak, over the past week. It's been, what's the best term for this? It's been a little tumultuous in the markets lately. You know, we look at some market benchmark adjusted. We had early closes last week for the Good Friday holiday. We saw market benchmark adjust 8 basis points, so 0.08% yesterday. They adjusted 0.1 today. So we've seen almost a 0.18% movement from rates last Thursday. So you're in a good position right now locking in rates, but it's you'll see a chart here in a little bit that just kind of walks through that. So this chart will be talking 0.1. This is a 1-year history on a market benchmark. It's 10-year AAA benchmark in the municipal market. And if we go back 1 year, that benchmark was at 1%. Today, that benchmark's at 2.5%. And you can see really the rapid climb here over the last 3 months as rates have as inflation expectations have become harder to predict, we've seen interest rates start to move. So 1 year history, that's a hard snapshot. If we back this out to 10-year, and what you see on the brackets, you see a high just north of 5 and a low rate at about 2. And you can see we've just kind of reached pre-pandemic levels now of where rates are. So if you really take this kind of wide swath, while it's gonna look like, well, you know, rates are way higher than they were last year, if we zoom out to more the 10-year horizon, you know, we're right in that median mark. You can see that benchmark median there. So I don't know if that's good news or bad news. My observation is, you know, every time we've seen this 150 basis point movement, we've seen a correction. So you can see there's really about 4 different places where we've seen 50 to 100 basis points movements, and then we see correction. And this one just really feels a lot different. So I don't have any predictions on what that will be, other than I think we'll be glad we locked rates in this week as opposed to next week. That's about as far as I'm gonna go out on the limb on my rate prediction here. That being said, so coming back into bid results, you did have 4 bids. You're just under 2.92%, or right at 2.92%. Robert W. Baird, who also purchased last year's bonds for the city. You got Huntington Securities, KeyBank, and JP Morgan.
And one thing you'll note, these names look a little different than last year, in part because last year you had a BQ issuance. You were deemed a small issuer because you issued less than $10 million of debt. So you're over the 11, plus you got the additional series coming up, so you don't meet that definition for the current debt. That probably has some value. That being said, Polk sold non-BQ debt, Ankeny sold non-BQ debt both yesterday. And we would, that's kind of the size you're getting to. It's nice when you can teeter under 10. You're probably gonna pick up, today's market, you would pick up about 25 basis points on your rate. The market in January, you were only picking up about 5 basis points on this. So, there's just been a lot of value in the banks right now. They're trying to figure out where they're putting their money, and they're buying muni bonds. So we got a supply demand imbalance there. Long story short, we'll get off kind of the market stuff into your deal. A little bit of your bidding results. You can see coupons, 5% to 3%. Yields are what drive your average rate. In this case, you're gonna receive a premium on your $11,250,000. They're set to pay you $11,614,000. So they're paying you a little bond reoffering premium. That's reflected in these prices that you see off to the right. So we do see that as a very common thing, especially on the non-callable bonds, to see those 5% rates when we get into the non-bank qualified market. So really in line with what we would have expected for rates. Your other three bids, then Huntington at a 296, KeyBank at a 296, and then JP Morgan at a 311. Going to a little bit on comparison, since Polk sold yesterday, they're a pretty easy comparable. Years 1 through 5, you're 5 basis points lower. Years 6 through 10, you're 5 basis points higher. They do hold a AAA rating versus your A1, and they were selling about $22 million in the market. So overall, your average rate ended up being right on top of where they were. They were 1 year longer, but overall, very comparable. Not really any differences that you couldn't explain by the bond rating. As we kind of work through your financial profile, one thing I'll note that may look a little bit different. We are selling your debt. It's got 10-year level principal for your debt service levy portion. Your TIF portion is 5 years, and we're doing level principal and interest. And the first year, we're solving for the levy rate. So in some ways, we're accelerating your debt. You can see the big $2.9 million of the 11.25 will be paid off within 1 year. And then if you take that out even further, almost $8 million of this debt will be paid off over the next 5 years. So you've really done a lot of nice things to shorten up your debt profile. Again, just a little bit on the details. We are still at that $1.44 levy rate. When we get into this future allocation, and again, you're not gonna be able to really see these numbers real close, but on page 13, your future levy rate, assuming no additional debt, is what's shown off there to the right. So we're still modeling out the ability to potentially keep dropping that, levy rate, maybe by another 10 cents and then 10 cents. And we've kind of settled out the model at 124 from the 144 you'll have this year. That being said, I hear concrete prices are more expensive than they were a year ago. So, all this does remain a little bit in flux. One thing that will happen that we know with the Iowa legislature and the property tax system is you do have some built-in parameters that if we do see a massive appreciation in home values across the state over these 2 years, there's rollback rates that may limit how fast your valuations and budget can grow at the city level. So that may put a little bit of pressure on your rate. So we'll just be in contact with that. Right now, we're not recommending any changes from what we're seeing, but as you continue to bid projects and we have to potentially slide more project dollars in, we'll just square that away with next year. So in summary, markets were different than they were a year ago. We're at pre-pandemic interest rate levels right now. looking at these comparable market financing, you know, there's value to your rating level and name. You guys sell well in the market. We're still going to see that value with BQ and non-BQ. If you can issue under $10 million of debt, you're going to see some value because the banks want to buy City of Urbandale debt. When you get to the non-BQ, it becomes less valuable for them. They lose some tax incentives for purchasing this type of debt. That being said, you've got to manage your capital program. So growing cities aren't, you know, they haven't changed that $10 million limit in over 20 years. So, you know, if that was inflation index, you would still be a small issuer, but you're not right now. So we recommend acceptance of the bid from Baird and happy to take on any questions you might have. I will not predict interest rates going forward, but I can tell you what's happened. So any questions from the council, mayor, city? Nikki, anything to add?
Thank you, Travis. Any questions from the council?
I just have a really quick one.
Yeah.
Assuming that we are expected in the next year or so, or 2 years, depending on whether the bond referendum is approved, to add a tremendous amount of debt to our levy. Would that impact our rating at all, adding 40, 50 million in like 1 year?
I don't think that's going to take you out of the realm of possibility of where you're at. There's a couple things that you're doing to offset that. One, you know, as we kind of work through yet, you know, action items, maybe yet still this fiscal year, but most likely calendar year, we're looking to retire some chunks of debt that are outstanding that are paid for with your TIF. So that will almost swap out your next issuance for, well, hope, you know, cross fingers that all the arena stuff goes through. That'll almost be a 1-for-1 trade-off. So that's not adding a ton of debt burden. The other things that you're doing with the rapid repayment using lost revenues to reduce your debt are going to be credit positive because it's going to lower that debt load. That being said, a lot of what they're looking at are the annual debt carry cost. And so that does become, you know, when you pay off debt more quickly, your annual payments for debt are, you know, higher, but you're going to get it paid off. So there's two competing things that work. One works for you, one works against you on your rapid debt payoff with the rating agency. But I wouldn't anticipate any rating pressure. I think a lot of the conversation is, you know, what needs to take place for you to move the other direction as opposed to what pressures might pull you down. So we'll keep advising on that though. Yep.
All right. Any other questions? All right, great. Travis, thank you again. Thanks for representing us so well. And
Yeah, thank you. If there's other questions, you know, if we need to do a lunch and learn later in the fall to go over anything in more detail as we kind of get through the planning, you know, there's obviously going to be more things going on this year for the city of Urbandale than, you know, your kind of standard one and done. So if you guys have a need for that or want to take on more education on anything, just let me know.
okay, appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right. So with that, I'll ask for a motion. Okay, motion by Blake, second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. All right, thank you. That passes. Moving on then to item 8.2, and that's to consider the external independent audit contract with Eide Bailey LLC. And to introduce this is our finance director, Nikki Lamb. Nikki?
Mayor, members of the council, tonight
Thanks,
we are bringing forward the recommendation to offer our 5-year contract to Eide Bailey. This went through an RFP process and then was moved through audit committee and bringing forward to today. This will be 5 years with 1 5-year extension available. Could answer any questions on it. They are our current auditor. We
And this
received bids from, well, it's all in your council letter. We received bids from 6 different firms.
We vetted this through a committee and then through the audit committee as well. So Larry was on the.
And I was on it. So Matt, you're the only one that hasn't seen this.
I trust you.
You want to move it then?
Move resolution 124-20.
Motion by Blake,
Second.
second by Obrecht. Discussion, please vote. That passes, thank you. Item 8.3 is to consider the equipment purchase for the fire department ladder truck. Chief?
Good evening, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, Council. This is the planned replacement for one of our two ladder trucks. Originally was scheduled to be replaced in '25, so it was moved up in the CIP to '24. And you're hearing it now because construction has taken 2 years now, where it used to take about 12 to 18 months to get them done. So that's why we're coming for you here now. This, like our last few trucks, last 4 ambulances and last 3 apparatus, have been purchased off the Houston Galveston area compact, so that allows us to utilize an already pre-bid bid. And we're coming for you now because May 1st, that's going up 7.5%. This is a 107-foot ladder, dual axle rear steer, which is not the same as a tiller, if you've ever heard of that, that has a steering wheel in the back and somebody drives the back of the truck, a little bit different than that. Total cost after discounts, $1.3 million. Our estimate when we put this together years ago was 1.2, so we're not too far off, even with the increases that we've seen. Probably the worst thing about this particular truck is it's an American LaFrance truck. It's not manufactured anymore, so it has very little to no value for trade-in or another department wanting to buy it because they're not making those parts anymore. Some of the standard parts on the ladder are there, but by far that's our biggest concern. If something breaks now, we're just out of that truck. This is the truck that's being replaced, and I just show you the difference between the dual axle is a truck that'll be much like this one. Again, has rear steer that allows us to get into those tight spots with the dual axle. And what we found with the single axle is many calls as we go on with the ambulance is it's really hard on that truck to do that on one axle. So that's why we're recommending the move to two axles there. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I'm just curious, Chief, what are we doing with our old truck then? Are we gonna donate it to someone or just hold on to it?
I don't know what we're gonna do at this point. Like I said, I don't think it's gonna have any value. We could try to sell it, and it's generally what we try to do. But I couldn't in good conscience tell somebody you should buy this truck, because if something breaks, you're stuck with whatever you spent. It's no good anymore. Although there may be some opportunity to give it to DMAC or something like that if we went through the process and nobody wanted to buy it.
Yeah, I was just thinking if there's any smaller, volunteer-run fire departments that don't really have a budget, if they might want it.
That's what we've done in the past, is tried to sell it, see what we could get for it. And we've so far been fortunate, and we've always been able to sell our trucks that we haven't traded in. These are the first 2 that are American or France that are no longer manufactured, and everybody knows you can't get parts for them anymore, so I don't know if we'll be successful this
I'll
time.
say a little bit more unique situation this time around.
But so,
Okay, thanks, Chief.
And Chief, this question might go this direction, but on the bid sheet, there's 100% option pay that's about 2% cheaper. We aren't getting 2% of the bank, so.
Money.
There's 96 million.
May 1st, when the rates go up. So that was the main thing, is we've always done 50% down because the chassis, normally we used to have to do that. So now at least they're offering us a discount to do that. So just from a cash flow perspective, I don't also have a reimbursement resolution in place to do that. We do 50%. That's how we set that.
So in the future, how could we be prepared in the future if this type of deal comes up where it's better to pay up front?
We would need to issue the bonds ahead of the actual purchase. So it was on order it, which means 2 years in advance right now. Just we're set up to do that.
so there is a savings for 50% of $36,000.
Right. Glad to get at least some savings, but there was another 2% there.
Right. It's
Another
a lot of money. I
$25,000,
realize that.
so.
And just so you know, again, in the fire department, we work very hard to try to keep costs workable. Johnston's ordering a truck. Theirs is $1.79 million. West Des Moines got a truck on order, should be delivered in the next month, and it's $1.6 million. So we've done a good job in getting what we need and relying on our neighbors for what we don't have. This is a straight ladder truck. There's no bucket on the end. Everybody else wants to have a bucket on the end, but you add about $600,000 to that when you do that. So we try to be very responsible.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Any further questions, comments? Motion?
Move council letter 7045.
Motion by Obrecht.
I'll second it.
Second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. Passes. Then item 8.4 is to consider the equipment purchase for the fire department rescue truck, chief.
This is a scheduled replacement of our heavy rescue truck, which is also an American LaFrance truck. It was purchased in 2004. But what we're recommending to do this time is downsize the size of that truck. If you're familiar with that truck, it's the same size as a normal fire truck. What's being proposed is a much smaller truck that will also require a purchase of a trailer. But the smaller truck and the trailer will still be under budget for what we had set aside for this particular purchase. What that will allow us to do is utilize the equipment that we don't use very often, but when you need it, and that's typically our trench rescue equipment. We'll keep that in the trailer, and when there's a call for that particular issue, then we'll take the truck and the trailer. But the other times, the truck will be more maneuverable and able to respond. And that actually works well with the ladder that you just approved, as we have opportunities to chase an ambulance with a smaller truck when we can and not always take out the ladder truck to do that. The total price is $392,857. We get a little savings with a 50% down like we did just a minute ago. And you can see our budget was $650,000. Again, this one probably has some limited value, but probably more valuable than the ladder truck because it's pretty straightforward. It's not so much, you don't have a lot of different truck parts on this. It's just a truck that carries equipment. And the history, when we bought this truck, we were still paid on call primarily. So the truck had to have foam tanks, so we'd have some fire suppression capabilities. And we also had air compressor, so we could fill air bottles on the scene. Both of those things are no longer needed, and that's what allows us to go to downsize the truck and make it a little bit more economical. This is the particular truck that will be replaced, and this is the size truck that will be replacing it. It's the same size chassis as what you approved a few weeks ago for our new ambulances. It's an E550, I think it is. But it'll look something along those lines, and it'll be able to pull the trailer. And we won't purchase this trailer right now. The trailer purchase will come later, and we estimate that purchase to be about $15,000, so significantly less money than what we had approved to start with. Be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
That trailer is easily accessible though, is you know, the side panels on the truck though, or when you're in a quick situation, can you get into that?
We believe so, yeah. Any more than what we have today, it may even be more accessible because the truck today can't get off the road. This one will have some ability to get off the road and get a little bit closer to some stuff, even with the trailer.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Chief, thank you. Let's ask for a motion.
Move approval of council letter 7047.
Motion by Obrecht. Second by Blake. Discussion, please vote. All right, thank you. That passes. And again, those are breathtaking numbers, but I know we always extend the life as much as we can. So Chief, thanks for doing that. I know you preserve our vehicles to the extent we can and get as much life out of them as we can, but they are needed, so thank you. All right, moving on to item 8.5, that's consider the amended and restated 28E agreement with the Valerius Elementary School parking lot, entrance drive, and open play field. And our Parks and Rec Director, Jan Herkey, would introduce the item. Jan?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, a little over a year ago, we presented to you a 28E agreement with Urbandale School District for the Valerius Elementary School reconstruction. Part of that 28E agreement was for the school district to be able to use approximately 130 feet by 270 feet of parkland at Walker Johnson Park, just west of the tennis court restroom, to extend their parking lot for their project. And in return, the school district would construct a play field, 120 feet by 250 feet play field that the city would then have access and to use and authority to schedule outside of school time. In addition, that 2080 agreement approved that the school district would include irrigation for that open play field and would bid that as an alternate, and the council would be able to consider those bids once they came in. with us here tonight is Dr. Daka, the superintendent from the school district, as well as Tim Simon, the building and ground manager. We met with them as well as city staff and realized that separating the irrigation just for that field for the bid would make the project much more expensive and much more complex in regards to bidding out the whole project, the irrigation for the whole site. So the school district proceeded with that bid of including the irrigation on all areas of the site, and the construction bid package did provide a separate bid specifically for the playfield. So we know specifically what the cost would be for the playfield for the irrigation. Since the school district is doing irrigation on the whole site, they will be paying for the majority of the irrigation in regards to the main pit and the pump and the water lines controller. That needs to be done for the site anyway. So for the playfield, fortunately, and Tim, you have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but there's a water line that runs right next to the playfield. So we're just talking about the connection of the irrigation lines, the plumbing, and the sprinkler heads. So a year ago, we were talking about a pretty significant cost to irrigate the fields. When the bids came in, the costs for those components that I just explained were $16,200 for the components of what the city would be required to do. So before you tonight is where we're calling it the amended and restated 2080 agreement to try to say, well, this changed in 4.26. We said, let's just restate the whole 2080 agreement. And the school district attorney worked with Mr. Layden, the city's attorney, in regards to this whole process as well. So one of the other changes or things that we wanted to make sure were clarified in this restated 2080 agreement was to clarify the district's responsibility for the parking lot and entrance drive in regards to the ongoing maintenance. So just an overview in regards to that, we added the entrance drive off of Dewey Gibbs Drive, including storm sewer intakes, as the responsibility of the district for all maintenance and repair, including snow removal. And the open play field, again, as I explained in regards to the cost, what we are proposing is a not to exceed $20,000, because as you know, with construction projects between now and when they're fully completed, there could be some ad alternates or things that come up. So we still feel this is a very reasonable cost for the city to be able to provide irrigation for the field. And again, as we stated, the main emphasis or incentive for the city is to be able to have access to that play field. So we did clarify in regards to the maintenance, where the city would be responsible for maintenance of the irrigation, and the cost would be shared with the district. Because again, in our discussions, and it was great working with the school district, and the reality of there's gonna be a lot of kids using that field during the school day, but the city will have a lot of use evening, weekends, and during the summer. So it seemed fair, instead of, well, I think it will happen, that repair needed to be done because of something would happen to the school or the city, we agreed to that would be shared cost. Unless it's an obvious issue that happened because of delinquency on either party, if a truck drove over something or things like that. The district would winterize the irrigation because they're doing their whole system. We'd maintain it and shared costs, but they would winterize it. We're gonna be provided access to the irrigation control system. So again, it'll be a certain zone, so we'd have access, and we would then be paying for the water. There'll be a separate meter, so we'll know specifically what amount of water is used for that, similar to what we do for the softball field at Lions Park. We keep track of that. At the end of the year, we invoice the school district. It would just be reverse on that. They'll keep track of it and invoice us for what their cost is for use of that water there. And in regards to this, the usage, where the district would have priority use, exclusive use from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. on work days during the school session. That came up in discussion as well, let's clarify, so when any of us in this room aren't here and we're still referring to the 2080 agreement, that as you'll see in section 5E, that it says, for avoidance of doubt, the city's use shall include weekdays from 5 p.m. until dusk, weekends, school holidays and breaks as shown on the district's official academic calendar. So then we know specifically of if there's questions as I said, into the future. And then we, as a city, can coordinate and schedule with third parties and work with them and be responsible for those, for that scheduling. So with that said, we're recommending approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. And again, we have the representatives here from the school district to answer any questions you might have as well.
All right, great. Thank you, Jan. Questions? Comments? All right. With that, is there a motion?
Motion to approve resolution 120-2022.
Motion by McBurney,
Second.
second by Obrecht. Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. Thanks again. Made it easy, right? We certainly appreciate working together, so that's a great partnership that we have on that. So thanks, guys. Appreciate you being here tonight. All right, then moving on to item 8.6, and that's to consider the garbage truck rental agreement with Big Truck Rental, and our Director of Engineering and Public Works, John Larson, is online, I believe. John? You'd answer any questions if there are? If not, is there a motion?
Move resolution 126-2022.
Okay, motion by Blake.
Second it.
Second by McBurney. Discussion, please vote. Okay, thank you. That passes. Item 9, Mayor and Council items. Adam?
It's going to give credit to Ms. Kroll, which she isn't here tonight. We'll talk about it anyway. So rain barrels. Polk County Conservation has rain barrels available for $50. Urbandale will reimburse up to $100. So basically you can get if you're a Polk County resident, get a free rain barrel. So as we were talking earlier about some of the stormwater issues, it's a great way to at least do some watering of your own grounds and defer some water from going into the storm sewer system is get a rain barrel set up. So
Absolutely.
just make sure you empty it before winter hits. So they're not fun otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. I've learned that the hard way too. All right, thanks.
And also, you can clean up this weekend if those that want to work on somebody else's yard and keep avoiding your own.
That's right. All right, thanks, Adam. Matt?
I don't have anything to add tonight for, I think, the first time ever. So,
Okay. Larry?
The only thing I'll add is that I'm working with AJ. I need to actually get with you after this to finalize it, but working on doing a solar power hour in Urbandale and hopefully using the council chambers to host a public forum for that. We just need to iron out the specific date, which sounds like probably Thursday of some sort. Thursdays probably work best, so I think.
Sometime when, in May sometime? Or?
Yeah, in May.
I thought you meant this Thursday.
Yep, not this Thursday. We're a little busy this Thursday.
Yeah.
No, on
Thursday worked
Thursdays,
great.
yes. So, yeah, so keep your eyes peeled for that.
All right, thank you, Larry. All right, I don't think I have anything further other than noting, we do have a busy week this week. We have tomorrow night our joint meeting with Planning and Zoning Commission here at 5:30 to discuss the comp plan, and then Thursday we have the visioning session that starts at 6:30, I believe.
6:30, John shaking his head, yes,
Yeah,
6:30.
so-
Thank you.
We have a busy week yet ahead, so with that, I'll ask for a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are adjourned, everyone. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening.